The station was older than Earth's sun. It floated in the dark space between galaxies, hidden from all who did not know where to look. The beings who built it had done so when the universe was still young, and they had maintained it ever since. They called it the Axiom Perpetua, and it was here that the immortals gathered to decide the fate of species. 12 civilizations had sent their representatives. Each one had conquered death in their own way. Some had uploaded their minds into machines that never failed. Others had learned to regrow their bodies endlessly. A few had become something beyond flesh entirely, existing as pure energy or living mathematics. They had nothing in common except one thing. None of them had died in millions of years. Ambassador Keth Vorn of the Synthesis Collective arrived first. His body was made of living crystal, and inside that crystal burned plasma hotter than any star. He had existed for 3 million years, and he remembered when his people still aged and died. He considered those memories shameful, like childhood embarrassments best forgotten. The chamber filled slowly. The Yith-Sharon came next, towering beings of living stone who moved with the patience of mountains. They remembered the first stars being born. To them, even the other immortals seemed young and hasty. The endless choir arrived as a single representative, though they were truly a vast consciousness spread across 11 star systems. Millions of minds thinking as one. They had achieved immortality by becoming a collective. No single part could die, because every part contained the whole. The nullborn were hardest to look at. They existed as mathematical equations given physical form, and mortal minds could not process their shapes without pain. They did not speak so much as calculate, and their calculations were always correct. High Arbiter Thessaly of the Undying Quartz appeared as shifting light, beautiful and terrible. She had existed for 900,000 years and had personally overseen the fate of 100 mortal species. She considered herself fair. She considered herself merciful. The species she had judged might have disagreed, but they were no longer around to offer opinions. Other representatives filled the remaining seats. Ancient beings, powerful beings, beings who had forgotten more history than most civilizations would ever create. They settled into their places and waited for the session to begin. Ambassador Keth Vorn stood to address them. His crystal body pulsed with contained fire. "We gather to discuss the mortal problem," he announced. "Specifically, the species calling themselves humanity." A murmur passed through the chamber. Everyone knew about the humans. They had been watching them for centuries. 300 years ago, humans developed faster than light travel, Keth Vorn continued. Since then, they have spread to 47 worlds. They build colonies at a rate we have never seen from any mortal species. They adapt to environments that should kill them. They create technologies that take us millennia to develop, and they do it in decades. He paused to let this information settle. "They are dangerous," he said simply. "Not because they are strong, because they are desperate." High Arbiter Thessaly rose, her light form flickering with interest. "Explain what you mean by desperate, Ambassador." "Humans live approximately 80 years, Keth Vorn said. Some live longer, some shorter, but 80 is their average. They know from childhood that they will die. They grow up watching their elders age and fade. They understand, in a way that we have forgotten, that their time is limited." He turned to address the full chamber. "This knowledge drives them. They do not have the luxury of patience. They cannot wait 1,000 years for conditions to become perfect. They must act now, build now, expand now, because now is all they have. Their desperation makes them reckless. Their recklessness makes them fast. Their speed makes them dangerous." The null-born representative shifted its impossible geometry. "We have calculated human expansion rates," it said in a voice like breaking equations. "At current growth, they will contact conclave space within 400 years. Within 1,000 years, They will represent the dominant intelligent biomass in the galaxy. This caused genuine alarm. 1,000 years was nothing to beings who had existed for millions. It was next week. It was tomorrow. What do you propose? Asked the representative of the Yith-Sharon, his stone voice grinding like tectonic plates. That is why we have gathered, Kethfor replied, to decide what must be done about the mortals. In the back of the chamber, far from the center of attention, sat a minor diplomatic observer. The Wanderer Collective had sent them as a formality. The Wanderers were known for their cybernetic enhancements and their reluctance to involve themselves in galactic politics. No one expected their observer to contribute anything meaningful. The observer called themselves Seven Echo. They had a standard humanoid frame covered in polished chrome. Their optical sensors glowed soft blue. They sat quietly and took notes, which was exactly what observers were supposed to do. No one paid them any attention. No one wondered why a wanderer would make the 17-year journey to attend a meeting as a silent witness. No one questioned their credentials or examined their biosignature too closely. This was exactly what Dr. Elena Chun had counted on. Inside the chrome shell. Behind the blue optical sensors, Elena watched and listened. She had spent 17 years in frozen sleep to reach this station. 17 years of her life, gone in dreams of the daughter she had left behind. When she entered the cryopod, her daughter had been 3 years old. Now that daughter was 20, and Elena had missed everything. She had missed first words and first steps. She had missed birthdays and graduations. She had missed scraped knees and broken hearts and all the tiny moments that made up a childhood. She had given all of that away, sacrificed it willingly, because someone had to know what the immortals were planning. Human intelligence had suspected for decades that the ancient species were watching them. They had detected observation probes at the edges of human space. They had intercepted fragments of communications that suggested concern, maybe fear. But they had never known for certain what the immortals intended to do. Now Elena knew. She sat in a room full of beings older than her entire species, and she listened to them discuss whether humanity should be allowed to exist. Her synthetic heart did not beat. Her chrome body did not sweat or tremble. But inside, in the small, organic brain that still remained human, Elena felt cold fear. She had 14 hours until her scheduled extraction. 14 hours to gather intelligence and escape before anyone realized what she truly was. She hoped it would be enough. She suspected it would not be, but she was mortal. She was desperate. And desperate beings did not give up simply because the odds were against them. That was what the immortals never understood. That was what made humanity dangerous. High Arbiter Thessaly took the center of the chamber. Her form shifted through colors that had no names in human language, each shade representing an emotion that immortals had invented long after they stopped dying. She had prepared for this moment for decades. To her, decades were like minutes, brief periods of consideration before action. "Let us be honest with ourselves," she began. "We are not here because humans are aggressive. Many mortal species have been aggressive. We are not here because they expand quickly. Others have expanded faster. We are here because humans are aware." She projected images into the shared consciousness of the chamber. Human history unfolded before the immortals, compressed into digestible moments. Cave paintings, pyramids, wars, plagues, starships. "They know they will die," Thessaly continued. "From their earliest recorded history, they have known. And this knowledge has shaped everything they are. Look at their religions, their philosophies, their art. All of it circles around death. They are obsessed with it. They fear it. They fight it. They try to give it meaning." The images shifted. Human soldiers charging into hopeless battles. Scientists working until their bodies failed. Artists creating masterpieces they would never see appreciated. Parents sacrificing everything for children they would never watch grow old. This awareness creates something we do not possess, Thessaly said. Urgency. Every human knows their clock is running out. Every moment carries weight that we cannot comprehend. They do not delay because delay might mean death. They do not hesitate because hesitation wastes precious time. She paused, letting her words settle. We became immortal so long ago that we have forgotten what urgency feels like. We have the luxury of patience. We can wait 1,000 years for the right opportunity. We can consider a problem for centuries before acting. Humans cannot. They must decide now. They must act now. They must succeed now or die having failed. Kefvorn interrupted. You speak as if this is admirable. I speak as if this is dangerous, Thessaly corrected. Admiration and fear are not mutually exclusive. I can admire a wildfire while recognizing it will destroy everything in its path. She turned to address the full chamber. In 300 years of space travel, humans have achieved what took us 30,000. They have terraformed hostile worlds by simply refusing to accept that those worlds were hostile. They have developed weapons that concern even the Yithsharan. They have created artificial intelligences that approach our own capabilities. They have done all of this while dying, generation after generation, passing knowledge from mortal to mortal in an unbroken chain of desperate achievement. The nullborn representative pulsed with mathematical certainty. Our projections confirm the High Arbiter's assessment. Human technological growth follows an exponential curve. If unchecked, they will achieve technological parity with the youngest conclave species within 500 years. Within 2,000 years, they may surpass us all. Elena, still hidden in her chrome disguise, felt her artificial stomach drop. She had suspected the immortals feared humanity. She had not realized how much. What do you propose? Asked the Yithsharan representative. Thessaly's form flickered through several colors before settling on something cold and blue. I propose we consider our options carefully. Extinction is simple but wasteful. Containment is possible but temporary. I believe we should discuss more elegant solutions, such as, Kefvorn asked. We could cure them. The chamber fell silent. Even the nullborn stopped their constant calculations. Cure them? Repeated the endless choir representative, harmonics of confusion layering their voice. Make them immortal, Thessaly explained. We have the technology. We could gift it to them. Transform them from mortals into beings like ourselves. Remove the desperation that drives their dangerous expansion. Elena felt something twist inside her. They were discussing changing humanity's fundamental nature as casually as one might discuss changing a shirt. That is not a solution, rumbled the Yithsharan representative. It is replacement. The species that emerged from such a transformation would not be human. You would not save them. You would end them and create something new wearing their faces. Is that meaningfully different from extinction? Thessaly asked. To them, it might be. The endless choir spoke next. We propose an alternative. A mimetic virus. A thought pattern that spreads like disease. We could make humans want to stop reproducing. They would fade naturally over generations. No violence. No transformation. Simply a quiet ending. Elena's chrome hands gripped the arms of her chair. A virus that made people not want children. They were proposing to make humanity choose extinction without realizing they were choosing it. Inefficient, the nullborn countered. We propose temporal isolation. Fold human space into a closed time loop. They will continue to exist from their perspective, but they will be removed from our universe. They will never expand further. They will never contact us. They will simply exist forever in their own pocket of frozen time. You would trap them, HFY said, forever repeating the same span of history without knowing it. They would not suffer. They would not even know. They would be prisoners. Prisoners who cannot even see their walls. Yes, the Nullborn agreed. But they would be alive. Is that not mercy? The debate continued for hours. Elena listened to every word, recording everything through sensors hidden in her artificial eyes. Each proposal was worse than the last. Extinction, transformation, mental manipulation, temporal imprisonment. The immortals discussed these options calmly, reasonably, as if they were choosing between different flavors of tea. Finally, Ambassador HFY called for a recess. The immortals would have time to consider their positions before the final vote. Before we separate, he said, I must address a concerning matter. Our intelligence networks have detected unusual activity. There are rumors that humanity has become aware of this gathering. More troubling, there are suggestions that they may have placed agents among us. Elena did not move, did not react. Her chrome face remained perfectly neutral. Mortal spies, wearing synthetic bodies, hiding in plain sight, HFY continued. I do not know if these rumors are true, but I urge all representatives to be vigilant. If there is a mortal among us, they must be found. Impossible, scoffed Thessaly. The journey here takes 17 years. No mortal would sacrifice so much of their brief existence for mere intelligence gathering. You underestimate their desperation, HFY replied. That has always been our weakness. We assume that because we would not do something, they would not either. The mortals do not think like us. They cannot afford to. Elena sat perfectly still as the chamber emptied around her. 17 years. She had given 17 years of her life to be here. More than a fifth of her entire existence spent in frozen sleep, dreaming of a daughter she might never see again. The immortals could not understand that sacrifice. They had forgotten what it meant to value time, to spend it carefully, to give it away knowing you would never get it back. But Elena understood. Every mortal understood. And that understanding was both humanity's greatest weakness and its only hope. 4 hours until the vote. The chamber was chaos. Elena had not expected her planted evidence to work so quickly, but the immortals had grown suspicious of each other over millions of years of careful politics. They needed very little reason to believe the worst of their allies. Ambassador HFY stood at the center of the storm, his crystal body burning with frustrated energy. The Nullborn had accused him of collaboration with mortals. The accusation was false, but HFY's angry denials only made him seem more guilty. This is absurd, he declared. The Synthesis Collective has always maintained strict separation from mortal species. We do not trade. We do not communicate. We observe only. Then explain the communication fragments, the Nullborn representative replied, its geometric form pulsing with mathematical certainty. Our analysis confirms they originated from synthesis space. Your analysis is flawed. The Nullborn do not make errors. Perhaps you do now. 3 hours until the vote. High Arbiter. Thessaly tried to restore order, but her efforts were undermined by the rumors about her own ambitions. The Yithshan had withdrawn from active participation, claiming they needed to consult with their ancestors. The endless choir watched in troubled silence, their harmonics discordant with worry. Elena moved through the chaos like a ghost. Her chrome body attracted no attention amidst the arguing immortals. She was beneath their notice, a minor observer from a minor species, irrelevant to the great powers who shaped galactic destiny. She found the choir node in a quiet alcove, watching the disorder with something like sadness. You were right, Elena said, approaching carefully. The conclave is divided. The divisions were always there, the choir node replied. They simply needed a reason to emerge. Someone has been very clever. Elena kept her expression neutral. Perhaps the immortals are not as unified as they appear. Perhaps the choir node's form shimmered. Or perhaps someone wants them to fight each other instead of fighting mortals. Elena said nothing. We told you before, the choir continued. Not all of us want humanity destroyed. Some of us believe that mortality has value, that the desperation of brief lives creates something precious. We have been arguing for coexistence for centuries, but we have always been outvoted. What changed? Nothing changed. Everything changed. The choir node turned to face her directly. A mortal came to this station. Someone desperate enough to sacrifice years of their brief existence. Someone clever enough to sow chaos among beings who have existed since before their species evolved. Someone who understood that immortals have forgotten how to adapt, how to respond to the unexpected, how to fight when the rules suddenly change. Elena felt cold certainty settle in her artificial stomach. The choir knew. They had known from the beginning. Why haven't you exposed me? She asked, dropping the pretense of her wanderer identity. Because we want humanity to survive, the choir node said simply. Because we remember what it was like to be mortal, to know that every moment matters, to love and lose and love again anyway. The other immortals have forgotten these things. They see mortality as a weakness, a flaw to be corrected or eliminated. They do not understand that it is also a gift that kills us, a gift that makes your lives meaningful. Do you think immortals are happy, human? Do you think existing forever brings joy? We have forgotten how to feel urgency. We have forgotten how to value time. We do nothing with haste because we have infinite time to do everything slowly. And in that infinite slowness, we have lost something essential. The choir node reached out and touched Elena's chrome shoulder. The contact was surprisingly warm. Your species fights and loves and creates with desperate intensity because you know you will end. You treat each moment as precious because it is. You take risks that we would never take because you cannot afford to wait for perfect conditions. That desperation, that urgency, that refusal to accept limitations, that is what makes humanity valuable. That is what makes you dangerous. And that is what makes you beautiful. 2 hours until the vote. Elena accessed the communication array while the immortals argued. Her planted chaos had bought her time, but she still needed to send her intelligence home. Whatever happened in the vote, humanity needed to know what they faced. She transmitted everything. The conclave's location, the identities of its members, the proposals that had been discussed, the divisions she had exposed. All of it compressed into a tight beam signal aimed at human space. The signal would take years to arrive. By then, the vote would be ancient history. But humanity would know. They would have time to prepare, to plan, to build defenses or find allies or simply to understand their enemies. That was all Elena could give them. A chance, a warning, a few precious years bought with 17 years of her own life. 1 hour until the vote. Ambassador Kethvorn called for order. His crystal body still burned with anger, but he forced himself into something like calm. The conclave had to make a decision. Their arguments could not delay the inevitable forever. We have debated enough, he announced. We have accused each other enough. Now we must vote. The mortal question must be answered. High Arbiter Thessaly nodded, her light form subdued. Agreed. Let us put aside our suspicions and focus on the matter at hand. What shall we do about humanity? The Nullborn began to speak, but Kethvorn cut them off. Before we vote, we must address the larger issue. Our security systems have completed their analysis. There is an intruder on this station, a biosignature that does not match any conclave species. Someone among us is not what they appear to be. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and perception field turned inward, examining, suspecting, calculating. Elena felt the moment approaching. She could try to escape. Her chrome body was fast, designed for infiltration and extraction. She might reach a shuttle bay before they caught her. She might survive. But survival was not why she had come. She had come to save her species. She had come to give humanity a chance. And standing in this chamber, surrounded by beings who wanted her people dead, she realized that intelligence and chaos were not enough. Someone needed to speak for humanity. Someone needed to show the immortals what mortals truly were. "You search for a mortal," Elena said, her synthetic voice cutting through the chamber's silence. "You wonder who among you is hiding, who has deceived you, who has been desperate enough to sacrifice their brief existence for this mission." She stepped forward into the center of the chamber, where the immortals could see her clearly. "Stop searching," she said, and then she dropped her disguise. The chrome plating retracted. The blue optical sensors dimmed and were replaced by human eyes, tired and determined. The synthetic voice gave way to something rougher, older, real. "My name is Elena Chun," she said. "I am 47 years old. I am mortal, and I am already here." The immortals entered what they called contemplation, a state of deep meditation that could last hours or days. For beings who had existed for millions of years, time moved differently. A few hours of rest was nothing to them. Elena could not afford to rest. She had perhaps 12 hours until the final vote, and she needed to use every minute. She moved through the ancient station, her chrome body blending with the other synthetic beings who maintained the Axiom Perpetua. Service robots and automated systems paid her no attention. She was just another machine moving through corridors older than human civilization. The station's architecture made no sense to human eyes. It had been built by beings who did not think in straight lines or right angles. Corridors curved in ways that seemed impossible. Rooms existed in spaces that should not have contained them. Elena's human brain struggled to process what her artificial eyes were seeing. She found the communication array on the station's outer ring. It was massive, a forest of antennas and transmitters capable of sending messages across galaxies. If she could access it, she could send everything she had learned back to human space. Even if she did not survive, humanity would know what it faced. But as she approached the array, she realized she was not alone. A figure waited in the corridor ahead. It was a node of the endless choir, temporarily separated from the collective consciousness. It appeared humanoid but wrong, like someone had tried to sculpt a person from memory alone. Its voice was music and harmony layered over themselves. "You walk with purpose, wanderer," the choir node said. Most observers simply observe. Elena kept her voice calm and synthetic. "I find the station's architecture interesting. I wanted to explore. The communication array is restricted. You should not be here. I apologize. I did not realize." The choir node did not move. Its form shimmered like heat rising from summer pavement. Elena calculated her options. The choir was one of the more sympathetic species in the conclave. They had argued against extinction. Perhaps she could use that. "May I ask you something?" she said. "You may ask. I may not answer." During the session, he spoke of alternatives to destroying humanity. Why? What makes them worth preserving? The choir node was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its harmonics were softer, almost sad. "The choir has studied mortals extensively," it said. "We find them fascinating. They create art of remarkable intensity, music that touches us despite our vastness, stories that capture experiences we have forgotten. They love with a passion that burns bright precisely because it cannot last." It moved closer, and Elena forced herself not to step back. "There is something about death awareness that creates beauty," the choir continued. Knowing you will end makes every moment precious. Immortals have forgotten this. We have become comfortable, complacent. We create art that will last forever, but it lacks the desperate intensity of mortal creation. You sound like you admire them, Elena said, echoing her earlier conversation. We remember being mortal. Long ago, before the choir became what it is now, we were individuals who lived and died. We remember the fear. We remember the urgency. We remember loving someone and knowing we would lose them, and loving them anyway because the alternative was never loving at all. The choir node tilted its head. We have a theory, Seven Echo. We believe there may be a mortal on this station. Someone who gave up years of their precious life to come here? Someone desperate enough to sacrifice everything for a chance to save their species. Elena's chrome hand moved slightly toward the weapon hidden in her forearm. If such a being existed, the choir node said, we would want them to know that not all immortals want humanity destroyed. Some of us see value in mortality. Some of us envy their ability to treat each moment as if it matters. It turned and began to drift away. The vote is in 9 hours. The choir will argue for coexistence. But we are only one voice among 12, and the fear runs deep. If you were mortal, Seven Echo, what would you do with 9 hours? Elena watched the choir node disappear around a curved corridor. Her mind raced. 9 hours. 9 hours to change the fate of her species. She could not simply send intelligence home. By the time humanity received her message, the vote would be decided. Whatever the immortals chose, they would act before humans could respond. Quarantine, extinction, temporal imprisonment. The options were all terrible. She needed to change the vote itself. Elena accessed the station's information systems through a maintenance terminal. Her artificial body had been designed for infiltration, equipped with tools that could bypass most security measures. The immortals had not updated their systems in millennia. They had grown complacent, assuming that no one would dare challenge them. She found the records first. The Conclave had been making decisions about mortal species for longer than Earth had existed. Thousands of civilizations had been judged in this chamber. She scrolled through the outcomes. Extinction, quarantine, temporal isolation, forced evolution, memory erasure. Species after species, snuffed out or transformed or locked away because they had the audacity to be mortal. Beings who might have been humanity's friends, partners, allies, all gone because the immortals feared what mortality drove people to do. Elena felt anger building inside her. Not the hot anger of the moment, but something colder and deeper. These beings had decided they had the right to judge others. They had existed so long that they had forgotten what it meant to struggle, to fight, to earn every moment of existence. Through effort and sacrifice, she began to formulate a plan. The immortals were not unified. She had seen that clearly during the session. The Synthesis Collective distrusted the Yithsharan. The Undying Courts considered themselves superior to everyone. The Nullborn cared only for mathematical efficiency. The Endless Choir had sympathy for mortals, but lacked the power to protect them alone. These divisions could be exploited. Elena planted the first seed carefully. A forged communication suggesting that Ambassador Kethvorin had been secretly trading technology with mortal species. It was believable because the Synthesis Collective was known for valuing efficiency above ideology. If they could benefit from mortal innovation, why wouldn't they take it? She planted the second seed an hour later. Evidence that the Undying Courts had been positioning themselves to take control of any quarantine zone established around human space. High Arbiter Thessaly's long-term ambitions were well known. Making her seem power-hungry was not difficult. The third seed was more subtle. Mathematical inconsistencies in the Nullborn's projections about human expansion. Nothing obvious, just small errors that would make the other species question whether the nullborn were truly as infallible as they claimed by the time 6 hours remained until the vote. The station was buzzing with quiet accusations and counter-accusations. The neat consensus around humanity's destruction was beginning to fracture. Elena watched from the shadows of her chrome disguise. She had done what she could. Now she needed to decide whether to try to escape or to push further. She thought of her daughter. 20 years old now, living a life Elena could only imagine. Did she remember her mother? Did she understand why Elena had left? Elena had always planned to return. The mission was supposed to be simple. Observe the conclave, gather intelligence, come home. But simple plans rarely survived contact with reality. She had 9 hours when the choir note spoke to her. Now, she had 6. Soon she would have none. The question was not whether she would survive. The question was whether she could make her death matter. Mortals understood that question. It was perhaps the only question that truly mattered. Elena made her choice. She would not run. She would not hide. She would stand in that chamber when the vote was called, and she would do whatever it took to give humanity a chance. It was, after all, what mortals did. The immortals stared at Elena Chun with something between horror and fascination. Here was a creature they had been discussing for hours, debating whether to save or destroy, standing among them as if she belonged. Ambassador Kethvar recovered first. His crystal body flared with contained fire. Seize her, wait. The command came from the endless choir, their harmonic sharp with authority. Let her speak. We have debated humanity's fate without ever hearing from humanity itself. This is our chance to understand what we propose to destroy. She is a spy, Kethvarin said. She has infiltrated our most sacred gathering. She has planted lies and chaos among us. Why should we listen to anything she says? Because she is here, the choir replied. Because she sacrificed 17 years of her brief existence to stand in this chamber. Because her very presence proves everything we have said about mortal desperation. Look at her, Ambassador. She is dying as we speak, aging with every moment, and still she came. Still, she risked everything. Can you imagine caring about anything enough to make such a sacrifice? The chamber fell silent. Elena stood in the center, surrounded by beings older than her entire civilization, and she felt strangely calm. She had expected to be afraid. Instead, she felt only tired and sad and determined to say what needed to be said. You're right, she said. I am a spy. I came here to learn what you were planning and to send that information home. I planted evidence to divide you. I lied and deceived and manipulated, because that's what desperate people do when their children's lives are at stake. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes and sensors and perception fields of beings who could destroy her with a thought. You've spent hours discussing whether humanity should exist. You've talked about us like we're a disease to be cured or a fire to be contained. You've calculated our growth rates and projected our expansion and concluded that we're dangerous because we're aware of death. She paused to let her words settle. You're right. We are dangerous. Mortality makes us desperate, and desperate beings do desperate things. We build and fight and create and destroy with an intensity you can't match because we don't have time to waste. Every moment matters to us in a way it can never matter to you. High Arbiter Thessaly's light form flickered with impatience. You confirm our concerns. You admit that mortality makes you dangerous. Why should this change our decision? Because you're missing something, Elena said. You see our desperation as a threat. You see our awareness of death as a flaw that drives us to dangerous behavior. But you've forgotten something important. You've forgotten what that desperation feels like from the inside. She thought of her daughter, 20 years old now, living a life Elena would never see. She thought of the 17 years she had spent in frozen sleep, dreaming of a child who was growing up without her. She thought of all the mortal parents throughout human history who had made similar sacrifices, giving up their own lives so their children might have better ones. "I have a daughter," Elena said. "Her name is Sarah. She was 3 years old when I left. I knew that by the time I returned, if I returned, she would be grown. I would miss everything. First words, first steps, first heartbreak, first triumph. I gave all of that up, sacrificed more than a fifth of my entire existence, because I knew that someone had to find out what you were planning." The immortals listened in silence. Some of them had not heard a mortal speak about moral concerns in millions of years. The words felt strange to them, like a language they had once known but had forgotten. "You think that sacrifice makes me dangerous," Elena continued. "And maybe it does. But think about what it means. I gave up my daughter's childhood to protect humanity's future. Not my future. I'll be dead in a few decades, no matter what happens here. But my daughter might live to see a universe where humanity is free, or one where humanity is destroyed or imprisoned or transformed into something else. I made my choice for her. For children I'll never meet. For generations that won't exist for centuries." She turned to Ambassador Kethvorin. "When's the last time you sacrificed anything for someone you'd never know? When's the last time any of you gave up something precious for people who wouldn't exist until long after you could benefit from your gift?" Kethvorin did not answer. "That's what mortality does," Elena said. "It connects us to the future in a way immortality never can. We know we'll die, so we care about what happens after we're gone. We raise children who will replace us. We build things that will outlast us. We fight for causes we'll never see concluded. Our awareness of death makes us care about more than just ourselves." The endless choir's harmonics shifted to something softer, something almost sad. "We remember," they said. "We remember caring like that. Before we became what we are. Before we forgot what it meant to end." "Then remember now," Elena said. "Remember what you've lost as well as what you've gained. Immortality gave you time, but it took something too. It took urgency. It took the desperate need to make every moment count. It took the connection to the future that comes from knowing you won't be there to see it." She spread her hands. "I'm not asking you to spare humanity because we're harmless. We're not. I'm not asking you to ignore the threat we pose. We do pose a threat. I'm asking you to recognize that what makes us dangerous is also what makes us valuable. Our desperation drives us to create, to explore, to push beyond limits you'd never challenge. Our awareness of death makes us alive in a way you've forgotten how to be." High Arbiter Thessaly's form had stopped flickering. She stood still, her light subdued, listening. "You could destroy us," Elena said. "You could quarantine us or transform us or lock us away in time. You have the power. But if you do, you'll lose something too. You'll lose the chance to remember what it was like when you were mortal. You'll lose the only species in the galaxy that can show you what you've forgotten." She took a deep breath. Her mortal lungs filled with air that tasted ancient and strange. "I'm not afraid to die. I've been dying my whole life, one moment at a time, like every human before me. What I'm afraid of is that my death won't matter. That everything I've sacrificed will be wasted. That my daughter will inherit a universe where beings like you get to decide who deserves to exist." She looked around the chamber one last time. "So vote. Decide our fate. But know that whatever you choose, we won't stop fighting. Not because we think we'll win, but because fighting is what you do when the alternative is watching your children lose everything. That's what mortals do. We fight impossible battles because the alternative is giving up, and giving up was never something we learned how to do." The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous. The Nullborn voted for temporal isolation. The Synthesis Collective voted for quarantine. But the endless choir voted for coexistence, and so did the Yithsharan, swayed by memories of their own ancient mortality. The undying courts abstained, uncertain for the first time in millennia. No single option achieved majority. The conclave, for the first time in its long history, failed to reach a decision. Elena Chun did not make it back to human space. Her body, worn from years of cryosleep and the stress of her mission, failed 7 months into the return journey. She died alone in a ship traveling through empty space, dreaming of her daughter. But her transmission arrived intact. Humanity learned of the conclave, its members, its divisions, its fears. They learned that they had enemies among the stars, but also potential allies. They learned that their mortality, the thing they had always seen as a curse, might also be their greatest strength. Sarah Chun, now a grandmother herself, received a final message from the mother she barely remembered. "I couldn't stay," the message said, "but I could make sure you had a future to grow old in. That's what mortals do. We give what we have so you can have more. It's not sacrifice. It's love. Take care of the stars for me." Humanity didn't defeat the conclave. They didn't need to. They simply refused to disappear, refused to stop growing, refused to accept that their brevity made them lesser. And in doing so, they reminded the immortals of something long forgotten. Eternity is not the same as living, and sometimes the shortest. Candle burns the brightest,